All right, guys, welcome back. Hope everybody is doing well today. What a week! What a week we had! What a great weekend! And it's just been crazy. Obviously, you guys know that we have had temperatures drop here. Our water levels have stayed consistent. We did get a lot of rain here over the weekend, but I was asked to do like an update on the Piedmont section all the way up. Just going up the upper Potomac for a lot of folks. We got a lot of new subscribers, a lot of new followers on Facebook. You can find me on JL Scott Fishing and Eats on Facebook and JL Scott Fishing on TikTok as well as YouTube. And it was what I like to do is I like to do like a fishing report, kind of just like an update on the status of the river for a lot of us, and plus give just some general tips and updates on the things that you can do during this time frame as we get ready to push into the fall fishing. Okay. Feeding frenzy hasn't really started yet. It hasn't triggered yet. We do have some overnight temps now, getting in that lower range, high 50s, low 60s. We want it to fall below 50 degrees really before we're going to see that real migration and feeding frenzy. Plus the rivers are way down. You got to remember, how I kind of distinguish things different than some other people in, as many of you know, I'm working on a book right now for the upper Potomac. And a lot of my research goes all the way back, and a lot of the stuff is kind of like taking in that kind of like pendulum of, a lot of things. I just published in the free newsletter. You can find that on the Smallmouth Army on Facebook. You can go to my Facebook page, JL Scott Fishing, links to that group. And you can click on the article, and it'll bring you into the newsletter, and you can subscribe to the newsletter if that's your poison. I just did one on grass, okay? Post 2018, the high water mark where a lot of these sections in the upper Potomac saw flood stage events 3 to 4 feet higher than flood stage, okay? It absolutely decimated the grass in the upper Potomac in a lot of these sections. And what do I mean by that is it pushed all of that grass, loose grass, right, in the river, okay, because of the sheer current flow and volume of that water. It pushed it, ripped it all up, roots and all, and pushed it all down river, right? Well, now we're seeing 5 years later, grass in areas of the upper Potomac that I know old timers that I talk to have told me there had never been grass there before. In 20, 30 years, there had never been grass patches and beds in areas in certain parts of the upper Potomac like there are today. It's usually been really rocky and sandy or shell beddy or things like that, and an occasional clump, right? But not anymore, okay? There is a tremendous amount of grass, and I mean thick grass, whether it be eel, hydrilla, whatever, on the Virginia side of the Potomac River, as opposed to the Maryland side in the Piedmont section. And I believe that is because of the actual topography of the actual river system. As that flood event happened and brought all that stuff down, if you look here on the map, you're seeing where the river bends, okay? And it's always bending out from the Virginia side and then back in and then back out and then back in, right? Whereas the Maryland side stays flat, okay, kind of consistent in the topography. And what has happened is the island breaks, okay, up through here. And we're going to open this up. The island breaks, okay, took the brunt of a lot of that force. Water went over those islands, okay, then to the sides and all through. Okay, on the Virginia side, that sediment and that composition that was brought down, okay, clumped up along the banks and over time has seeded and over time has now produced new grass, okay? As opposed to the Maryland side, which did not get, Maryland side is more rocky, okay? Big rocks, boulders, everything. Didn't really experience that. So there's not as much grass on the Maryland side. So let's break this down here from when I talk about the Piedmont section, and I'll cover the Piedmont exclusively in my book. We are really talking about the 495 bridge to point of rocks. That's really what I consider to be the Piedmont section of the upper Potomac River. Okay, you've got Great Falls downriver, Great Falls and Little Falls downriver, but 495 crossing from Maryland, Virginia to Maryland, Scotts Run Natural Preserve on the Virginia side, Carter Rock, you've seen videos, Carter Rock. This section here tends to be very primarily a wade fishing section, okay? Tends to be shallower and rockier and sandier. You can find some videos of Carter Rock on my Facebook page and YouTube channel as well. Trails run right along the river, so you can get down in a lot of areas here and then out in the river and then do a lot of your walking, obviously, in the river in this section down here. But it is primarily a wade fishing section. Occasionally you'll see kayaks and canoes, but a lot of times the water tends to be lower. More times than not, you see guys pulling their kayaks in this section. As you get up closer to this section right here, from Bear Island to Old Anglers Inn, is a very, very predominant kayak and canoe recreational area. Okay, it's beautiful. It's got islands all back and through there. You've got a put-in at Old Anglers Inn off river, MacArthur Boulevard, down. Okay, Old Anglers Inn is a restaurant right there, but the access is right across the street from Old Anglers Inn, and you've got to walk quite a bit of ways. But that is a filled on the weekends predominantly throughout the year if the weather is nice. It is a significant, like I said, paddling recreational area. There is some good fishing below it and above it. When you're talking about below Great Falls, okay? And then obviously 495 Little Falls is down below. A lot of people start with the Piedmont right at the Great Falls overlook and the dam and go up. I just include this section because I think this section is more indicative of the Piedmont than the lower part down into DC and you change over into your tidal influence Potomac. So when you see that, a lot of people will be look at the Great Falls Dam up in here as the beginning of the Piedmont section. I don't. Largely because you got a lot. If you've ever seen the videos of Great Falls, check them out. That's tremendous whitewater kayaking, very dangerous. Would not recommend anyone going up in there that was not in a whitewater mentality. But you can get up close, in some of these sections and obviously fish as well, accessing the river, going up, paddling up, and then coming back down. And that's why I included it, because there is some pretty good fishing at times in this area, but this does tend to be a more of a paddler, whitewater kayaking, canoeing situation. You got a lot of people also out in the water at a lot of times, and I think that's probably why a lot of people don't really throw it into the fishing stuff. But of course, the fish or that water flow and that drop significantly influences fish in the lower segments. So you've got Great Falls here. You've got the dam there. One thing I will tell you about this that's not covered in a lot, and I've gotten a lot of messages, and I'm actually talking to law enforcement and stuff, is you just need to pay real attention to who's giving you information about areas. There, obviously he's a predominant YouTuber that takes a lot of risks. And just because someone on YouTube is telling you that you can fish, you cannot fish in the water below the dam. Okay, you can fit their bank areas above the dam that are designated. But if you're out on that water, you step foot in that water and walk across rocks and try to fish below the dam, which has a tremendous amount of smallmouth at times, and you're going to get ticketed, okay? Because it's not a Maryland, it's a federal. It's the National Park Service laws that you need to read in terms of access. You're not allowed to wade fish. You're not allowed to swim. You're not allowed to do those things below that dam area in there, and you will get ticketed, okay? Regardless of what any YouTuber says, doesn't matter if he has 1 million followers or not, okay? He got away with it on that trip, but I've had people message me who have gotten ticketed. And, there's nothing I can do other than be like, report on it and be like, look, you got to make sure that you double check all of the laws and ordinances both at a state, local, and federal level for a lot of these fishing designated areas, okay? Or you will get ticketed by a conservation officer or a National Park Service ranger, Maryland conservation officer, a Virginia conservation officer, whatever it may be. They're out in force, especially in the Great Falls area, because it is a dangerous area. It is a very dangerous area. I would venture to say more people have lost their life in this area and below than above to Point of Rocks, all the way up to Point of Rocks. Okay, that is a long way on the river over history, just because it is a very, very dangerous area. So keep that in mind. You've got your access on the Virginia side right up here, and this is where we're going to get into the good stuff, okay? So you can access here, and you can access Algonquin, okay, which is further up, Trump National, the golf course. Algonquin is more or less across from Seneca Landing on the Maryland side, which is also known as Riley's Lock. You'll find that under Riley's Lock if you go through my playlist on YouTube. And here's the bends I was telling you about, okay? So what I consider from here, from really the bend to Pennyfield, okay, which is an access point on the Maryland side, all right, is where I've seen tremendous amounts of grass growth. Okay, grass just sitting on top of the water, okay, folded over, all right. Now I'm going to get in this section here. Okay, all these sections have been 2 feet or less for like the last 2.5 to 3 weeks. Okay, there's some deeper pockets. You find those holes, you're going to find their smallmouth bass. Okay, on the Maryland side, you've got Pennyfield here. Okay, that was the access that I was telling you about. All right, and then you also have Swains, which is at a lock house down below here. Okay, below the filtration center. Let's see if I can pull it up. It's really not showing up here for you. At Canal Lock 21, okay? Swain Lock, all right? So you see that Canal Lock 21 does not have a full access point for you, okay? But it's a predominant aspect. It's got a campground. A lot of people leave the bank and wade fish here once you get beyond the cut. And you can put in your kayak or canoe if you go straight down from the blockhouse. You go straight down into the campground and then stay towards the left. You will see an area cut out. It drops down, and there's an old, like basically it's a cement block, okay? And you can access the river there. That's the product. There's also an access a little further up through the other side of the campground. It's a lot steeper grade, but that's an easy access. This is the one I use, and then I go straight up to the cut. Gladys Island, Lock Island, all right here. Minnehaha down here. And I stay. I don't tend not to go any lower than that island, because of just getting back. You're going against the current. It's dropping a little bit. Just makes for a long day. But you certainly could go from Swains to the Virginia side to Riverbend in that regard and have it be, a really, really great float, in terms of that. And I'll change this over to satellite view to give you a really better idea. And again, the river has been so down all of August. Fishing's been a lot tough, but you get an idea. Look at all the island breaks here. Okay, this is why this has become wade fish mecca. Okay, and because you're going to catch fish, you are. But the river is so low, you don't need a kayak. I mean, you can wade fish all out through here, walking across. It's not going to get deeper than your waist for the most part, probably until fall. Okay. Most of the time when I'm out, it's about knee deep or less in the deepest areas. Okay. But you can fish off these. You can do this. If you've seen my videos on the cut, that cut is right here in Gladys. Okay. Or Gladys. Some people call it Gladys. I call it Gladys. Again, the river has a lot of different names. Different people call things different things. So just keep that in mind. And again, typically fishing is not nearly as good here, okay, in these sections as upriver. Okay, what I mean by upriver, I mean above Point of Rocks, okay, to Edwards Ferry, all Brunswick, Landers, Brunswick, all the way up, right? Typically, it tends to be a tougher bite, but what we've seen this year is more fish in here. I think that's a product of the grass. It's a product of successful spawns. Okay. And again, you can access here at Swains, you can access upriver at Pennyfields. And you can see that's a pretty good float. Okay. From 22 to 21, Pennyfield to Swain is a really great float. Okay, it's a great first-time float for people. You're accessing Pennyfield. You've got Harris Island, Watkins Island, Sycamore Island here. I love to get up in here during certain times when the water's rising because these fish will hold in tight to here. It's a great areas in here. Again, right in here, great area. These island strips, little islands break up the current. Okay, and they create points. And these are just, and if you have deeper water on each side or other side, that's where you're going to find your smallmouth bass. Okay, it's just really, really great. I recommend out of Pennyfield either do a float to go down to Swains or go upriver to below Old Dam 2 where the breaks are, and that way on your way back you've got the river working with you going back downriver. Okay. Because this is trust me, I have done it from Pennyfield all the way down here and then paddled all the way back up. That is a long day, okay? You will be tired. Your muscles will be hurt because you're going against the river, okay? That whole way back, all right? Or you're getting out and having to pull your kayak against the current for an hour, okay? And it could be longer depending on what the current flow is. In that regard, okay? So that's Pennyfield Boat Ramp. It's an awesome little area here. I'm going to get some videos coming out. We got some catch and cook, and we got some videos coming out for Pennyfield off these islands up in here. I love to hit these islands. It's great video. It's great fishing all through here below your see the break start or end in this section right here. You see these rock lines. That's the way it is today, only it extends a lot further. Okay, because the water's been so down. Remember, the water is about 13 inches at Point of Rocks. Okay, Edwards Ferry is probably 3.3 feet. Okay, to me, that's low for Edwards Ferry. Maybe normal for this time of year, but Edwards Ferry usually is 4 or 5 feet. Okay, and basically, Point of Rocks is almost always 3 feet less than whatever Edwards is. Okay, or 2.5 to 3 feet, whatever Edwards is. And it's all due to topography. Okay, the river's wider around Edwards Ferry and White's Ferry. Okay, it's just a wider, and the topography around the river is different. That's why it tends to be deeper water. And then you get into the topography changing below Seneca Landing, where it becomes all rocky. You go out of Seneca Landing, which is above Old Dam 2. And ponds. Okay, I love to you can wade. Again, this is the towpath. So if you're a wade fisherman and you could park at Pennyfield and walk up for a mile or so on the towpath, or you could park at Violet's Lock at Old Dam 2, which I will show you, walk down, cut down the towpath, which is this, that follows the river, and you're right on the river right here. Okay, this is one of the most popular areas to access the river for wade fishermen right here because the towpath, you can just take it. I know people that will take their rods, backpack their rod and their bike. They will bike from Violet's Lock, okay, which is right up here. This is Old Dam 2. People call this Seneca Breaks, okay? Coined most likely, by previous authors, really, not really there's really no historical connotation to Seneca Breaks, like from our history books or the Native Americans that were indigenous to this area. Obviously, Seneca Landing is named after the Seneca, and this is, I'll get into my book. I cover a lot of this for the Indian tribes, the Iroquois on the Maryland side, the Algonquin on the Virginia side, and their interactions in this section of the river is awesome history to understand. It's why all the place names, you saw Minnehaha, you saw a lot of these place names along the river all the way up are carryover names from the indigenous peoples. and what they called them. But sometimes islands have more than one name because certain people refer to them as their traditional indigenous people's name, and then other people have changed the name or adopted a new name, or post Civil War they've kind of named fords after events that happened in the Civil War, but they were fords that had names long before the Civil War. So there's a whole bunch of history wrapped up into it. That's why I love it so much. But this is Old Dam 2, and it's just basically a ledge line, rock line, ledge line. I talk about numerous videos, live streams I've done fishing on TikTok and on YouTube from the actual ledge to give people an understanding. You got all this area that people basically fish off the rocks. They wade fish, they fly fish. But again, you can grab here, park in this parking lot. You can walk all the way down. Okay, I've seen guys will ride their bikes. They'll lock their bikes up around a tree, and then they're onto the river. And so they're there on the river in 5 minutes, 5-10 minutes. They're down the towpath. Boom. They're on the river, and they're all over this river wade fishing. It's a really great experience. I love it to see those guys, and usually we're pulling kayaks through here. Okay, the inflatable kayak. I tend to bring the inflatable kayak as opposed to the standard traditional kayak because it does better bouncing off these rocks than a traditional molded kayak will. You will beat up your kayak when you in a lot of these sections. Okay, especially when you're 2 feet or less. Okay. So you need to think about that. This is a great section here. Fish usually tend to align below Pond Island and in through here. But you will find them, especially when they looking for oxygen, looking for forage, looking at all that. You're going to get it. And you also have some really good fishing out of Violet's Lock. Okay, the lock is right here. Parking is right here. You can access it. You can access to go below the dam, out through the parking lot, and in through the cut, and you can get into the river that way. So you're accessing the river below the dam or above the dam. Beyond the 2 locks, you'll find the lock door, and on the towpath right here, you can access it to fish above the dam. Okay, and you can just stay above the dam, and you'll see a lot of roaming smallmouth above the dam. Typically, when you're seeing lower level conditions, okay, like 3 feet or less, you get in there's a lot of debris in here, okay, a lot of stuff coming from upriver gets log jammed on this rock and this ledge line, and you basically can ditch your kayak. Usually this section here is really deep, 5-6 feet, and so you can't really just wade directly out. You could probably get that way by going here, crossing in shallower water, then hitting the island and coming out of the island and walking up, okay? But accessing here, because of the locks, the doors are right here, it's very deep, okay? And can be pretty swift because the water is coming and hitting that door and then traversing down through this cut, okay? So you can access it. I'd say, grab your kayak and then ditch your kayak, park your kayak, beach your kayak, and then you can get out and you can walk all the way across this line, okay? Typically in 2.5 feet of water, okay? To the Virginia side. This side down here tends to be my favorite spot. It's where I've caught the citation smallmouths is in this section. You can actually go also down and cut through here, the old canal, okay, through the old canals, okay, which is pretty cool. It's pretty narrowish, but it's a little deeper, and you can get some fish in there too. But just remember that if you make that cut, you basically got to make that commitment to go all the way through Beach Island and then come out below, okay? And so what a lot of people will do is they'll start up here. They'll start up here. Or start up here, come across, go all the way down, come out below Beach Island, right in here. A lot of times this is a great little area too. It's a little deeper. And they'll come back across and go straight across here. And the people that know this area a lot, and you'll see them. I've seen guys pulling kayaks with a kayak cart on the back of a bike, okay, and then they're heading back to their car. So it's just they just do it like where they've got it set up where their bikes are already here and their cart's already here locked up, and They bring that and then they go back because it's not that far. It's really not. It's like a 5-minute walk, depending on where they do it. And a lot of people will come down this way as well, come straight down here and then beach their kayaks here. Okay, they'll do a lot of people do catch and cook here. There's a little campground, little area here. It's been used by everybody. But you take a break, have lunch, whatever, wade fish, get out. A lot of people do videography from here. I've seen a lot of people launch their drones from here to get shots of the dam up here and all that stuff. So it's really, really great. Okay. And look at this. Look at the difference here to here, right? There's your drop. Okay. This drops a significantly amount over the next mile or so as you get further downriver to Pennyfield and Swains and the Great Falls. Okay. And this is all deeper water. Okay. So a lot of people will come out right here. Riley's Lock, also known as Seneca Landing, okay, is a boat access. Jet boats, all kinds of boats, but mostly it's jet boats. Canoe, kayak, okay, at Riley's Lock, all right, the aqueduct, and access the river. So jet boats usually come out of here, and they're not going to say, I see them every now and then, but for the most part, they're coming out of here, and they're hanging a right, and they're going upriver, okay? All right. Now, you got your golf courses I was telling you about, okay? You got the big American flag. It's always right here. Kind of gauge your wind by looking at that flag. At least that's what I do. And then you're heading this way towards the other access, as I said before, on the Virginia side is Sugarland Run, Algonquin. I know it very well. I grew up right here. Within 2 minutes of Algonquin Regional Park as a young lad, long before there was a Trump golf course, long before there was anyone ever knew what Lowe's Island was, didn't exist. It was just Sugarland Run, access the Algonquin Regional Park, boat ramp, and then you got your access here on the Virginia side. And so a lot of peeps go right out of here, and again, they go upriver, okay? Fish these islands, and they'll go upriver as opposed to down to the dam, because the dam is really a block. Not most people who launching from Algonquin go below the dam. They may go down to the dam and fish the dam, but most times they're hitting 10-foot island, okay, and they're working their way all the way up, all right, and heading upriver, okay. And I'm gonna widen this up so you get an idea how long these runs are. These islands get pretty big. And then most people will cut through here, okay? You'll see the boats. Just be very, very careful when you're in a kayak or a canoe, because you will have the john boats and jet boats running through here, as they go to the other side. And then you've got Sycamore Landing, access point right here. So there's so many access points that you can find. And this stretch just is basically twice as deep. I mean, it's usually, 3 feet, 4 feet deep in most areas, as opposed to below the dam where it's 2 feet or less. Like right now, it's a foot. You can walk all the way across the river from the Virginia side to the Maryland side. You've got some access points. Again, Goose Creek right here, really low right now, okay? You could probably get up in there and fish in there for about, probably okay for like 25 or 30 yards. But then again, we're just experiencing not a lot of rain, not had a lot of high water weather events that have contributed to increasing flow rates in the upper Potomac. So almost all the streams and tribs, and creeks are lower than they normally are. You could actually fish the creeks, wade fishing all the way up, just any number of creeks all the way up. The Monocacy, you can get in at an aqueduct, the Monocacy Aqueduct, the Monocacy boat landing, and walk all the way up to the natural reserve area, okay, and wade fish all the way up, and you're not going to get above 2 feet of water. That's how low these rivers are, okay? So you're not seeing a lot of boat traffic up into some of these creeks and tribs. A lot of kayak and canoe traffic, okay? And that's what it is. Goose Creek also has a pretty good largemouth population, especially around here at the mouth. It's where I always end up catching my largemouth on the upper Potomac, is right in here.